And of course, we had to have a remix of Eternal Bond for the ending theme. Smash Brothers wasn't exactly wrong, it really is Ike's theme. They have the support of Dane's people, after all. And unlike Path of Radiance, we actually have proper character endings for this one. So yes, Micaiah becomes Queen of Daen even if Pelleas is alive, because Pelleas is revealed to not be Ashnut's son. And you'll see later in the endings, Pelleas, ruling's not for him. He decides to become an advisor instead. And yes, Soph marries Micaiah if they have an A support. The paired endings in this game don't actually combine the two characters' endings, it just alters the ending of one in the pair, in this case Soph. Blade of Justice, that is such a cool title. However, Edward seems to have given up his sword after the war. But he's still kept in touch with his friends. That is also a cool title. Many characters have really cool endgame titles in this game. Leonardo still remained a soldier. And became a chick magnet, apparently. Also, I love Nolan's ending. Nolan's ending is so fitting for one as amazing as him, you'll see why. So yes, essentially Nolan became a superhero. Maybe he was the precursor to Arthur. But yes, Nolan did basically become a superhero, and that's amazing. Like many priests throughout the series, Laura opens an orphanage. And Ileana's among these people for some reason. I don't think she's actually from Daen, I think she was just there because of the merchants. Also, this is pretty amazing. Aaron, why don't you have a paired ending with Laura? Why? They really don't, it's extremely annoying. But, yeah, they don't have a paired ending. I'll be talking about which characters do have paired endings as well. And yeah, saying that his work is clumsy is weird, because Aaron actually has a pretty high skill stat. And meanwhile, Toronu remains a pillar for Daen and, or linchpin for Daen, and remains a general. Linchpin and pillar. Zihawk's epilogue title's great too. Yeah, he sort of became a Biok Laguz diplomat. Settled in Gallia. I wonder if there's hope for a Zihawk and Left pairing someday, maybe. I don't know. Jill actually takes over Talriga. And Ha, who does have an ace-support ending with Jill. Their ending doesn't specifically say they get married, but I believe Jill's ending only mentions her husband if she had an ace-support with Ha, so yeah. Ha never fought again, and that was a travesty. And Fiona, who again has pretty much no development because she's a new character. It's a shame, so much more could have been done with it. I wish we'd actually got to see what Lanvega looked like. And Pelleas. Yeah, this is where she finds out. Ah, poor Armada. Not only does she pretty much lose her mind over the course of these two games, but she finds out that the one thing keeping her together, he was not really her son. Ashnard must have abandoned him at a very young age. So it turns out that Pelleas actually has the Mark of Spirit Protection. But given what we know about Spirit Charming from Tormod and Khalil supports in the last game, it's actually pretty disturbing because it means that Pelleas might not live for very long. Yeah, she did love him like a mother. I'm sure she could be considered his adoptive mother somehow. So yes, this ending only takes place on a second playthrough if you chose to spare Pelleas. And Pelleas, yeah, he's not really that good at ruling. So instead, he serves as a court advisor. Mistress of the Evil Eye. That refers to her glare skill, by the way, which is literally called Evil Eye in Japanese. Oh, I also should mention, some of these endings change if certain characters died. Off the top of my head, I can't quite remember. I think Volug's ending changes a bit if Nyla died. I think Raphael's changes if Nyla died. Oh, and this ending is pretty good. Volug, extremely bizarre and quirky to the end. First of the Serenade siblings we're getting an ending for. Oh, I'll be showing this in the unused content videos, but we actually do have artwork for their father. And now, Gallia. Considering how powerful Ike is, he might actually stand a chance. Like, say, maybe fighting representatives from other franchises? Controlled matches, you know, items off. Only Omega stages. Yeah, Ike's probably happy in that kind of world. Yeah, the text scrolls very slowly in these, but I like that these aren't combined with the credits like in later Fire Emblem games, because I can actually talk about these endings as they appear without losing focus of the credits. Because sometimes I like to see if I can recognize names in the credits. Unfortunately, Kanagas abdicated the throne, which is not good. In the case where Kanagas died, Scrimia's ending mentions that he became king on Kanagas' death. As we'll see here. Well, I would say we're all doomed now that Scrimia is the new king of Gallia, but he has developed quite a bit over the course of Part 3. So there's definitely hope yet. By the way, Ranulf does have a paired support, does have an A support ending with Ike. I don't know if that, like, I've never actually done it before, but I think that might push Ranulf's ending up to later in the epilogue. And Ranulf still probably snarks at everyone. Gallia's Valkyrie is kind of a weird thing to be calling her, because she's not a Valkyrie at all. Of course, Leth became a drill sergeant. That actually suits her. Mordecai, meanwhile... Yeah, I thought so. Living peacefully in the forest is probably more his thing. Oh, hi, you. You exist. I'm not actually entirely opposed to the idea of pairing her and Gatry, though. They don't have a paired endings, though. She often told people of the war and the heroes therein, because, she doesn't really get to participate in it very much. And Keisha's ending's pretty generic. And now Bednion. But first, a revelation that you can kind of piece together from lots of things that we've seen. Micaiah and Sanaki have the same color of eyes. Micaiah has the abilities of the Apostle's bloodline. They have very similar stat builds, having low speed but high magic resistance and luck. And that's why she wanted to talk to Leran in the final battle. He's also her great, I don't know how many greats, I probably said too many, grandfather. No, I don't think so. The people of Bednion have already accepted Sanaki as their ruler, and having Micaiah there would just create a succession crisis. I think it's for the best that Micaiah doesn't try and take up the role of apostle. Everyone already loves Sanaki, even if she can't hear the voice of the goddess. And again, being the sibling of the ruler of another nation. That definitely helps too. Of course, Sanaki appearing in a hero's banner called Sibling Bonds kind of spoiled that. Though thankfully Micaiah wasn't added until much later, so they didn't specify who her sibling was. This line from Sanaki is a bit weird because they made it clear that Yune isn't actually gone, and you'll see something later. Oh, by the way, Sigun and Tannis endings are pretty funny. I like that they made these endings parallel each other. Some of these endings are pretty good. And Tormod becomes a Laguz advisor in Bednion, as in a way that Sanaki implied that she promoted him to that role in Path of Radiance, actually. And Maureen got promoted too. Him being Bednion's first ever Laguz official though, and kind of being a Beast-type character reminds me of what ends up happening to Hank McCoy at the end of the third X-Men movie. Oh, and you. I wish more was done with you. You could have been really interesting, but you just barely get any screen time at all. Both in story and in gameplay. Oh, and by the way, yeah, Oliver's still alive, and he gets an ending. Of course he did. Now, Stefan's ending is interesting. Lion-blooded is meant literally, not metaphorically. In the Japanese version, it's a bit clearer. So that heavily implies that he is descended from Soan, and in the Japanese version, his name is Soanvalk. So that makes it even clearer. And now the bird tribes. Now the bird tribes are actually interesting. Because as you can see here, as she promised to in Path of Radiance, Serenades is ceded back to the Herons. But not just that. All three of the bird tribes are now going to merge into one nation. Yeah, that's still going to take a while. It's amazing to see how far Raison's come since the last game. He was originally hated all Bjork and wanted to wipe them out. Oh, and of course, we're gonna have to, Yeah, we're gonna have to find some way to deal with this. Of course, I could be the one to talk about meat. Lord of the Air. Yeah, probably better that he become the first king and not Nisala, because that might, yeah, cause issues. Well, we haven't quite seen Nisala's A support ending just yet. We never know what this new combined bird nation is called. That last line's pretty funny. Come on, where's Leanne? I need to see Leanne. Also, Janeth, I'm so sorry that I called you a girl many times throughout the game accidentally. I don't know why, I just think Janeth looks really feminine. And they continue to be the Hawk King's eyes and ears. Here she is. So, this is her A support ending with Nisala. And this shows how Lagoo's genetics work. Most people speculate that Lagoos of the same tribe can breed together and the children will just be any of the species of the parents, but Lagoos of different tribes probably can't. So given that Nisala and Leanne are both bird tribes, yeah. For some reason Volk is listed here. Guess there's no other place to put him. Of course he did. There's always one character who just disappears mysteriously. Thankfully I didn't kill all of the dragons in Endgame, so Kurthnaga still has countrymen left. So, Ina. Ina is interesting. I mentioned before that her defeat quote in the final chapter implies something. She was pregnant. So, dragon pregnancies go on for a long time, as this ending implies. So it turns out we actually are going to get a child who has red, white, and black dragon blood. We're not really sure what they're going to be, though. So Gareth's ending is interesting. In the Japanese version, it mentions that Ina's child is a classic case of dead guy Jr. and was named Rajeon. That detail was omitted from the English version for some reason. And now Crimea. Crimea, where it all began. And that's all we get there. Elincia's still been a great character throughout this entire duology. And she'll be a great queen. And yes, even if Renning survives, Renning still lets Elincia rule. At this point, she's done a good job already, and, he's okay with letting her do it. And Joffrey does have an A support ending with Elincia where they get married. And there are actually there's actually a couple of other A support endings among the Crimeans. Lucia actually has one with Bastion, surprisingly enough. It says they never got married, but that they still had a love affair. Oh, by the way, this line, Way to start up a ship and then sink it right at the end of the sentence. Like, their love was felt to be stronger than even the most sisters. Oh, yeah. It's a pretty trollish case of ship sinking. And Kieran. I feel like Kieran should have done more in this game. I mean, he was kind of a boss in part 3, so that's something, but... yeah, Kieran is a really fun character, and I wish he had more lines. Or also this, yeah. And Marsha, again, I wish Marsha did more in this game, because she was great too. Yeah, I just don't feel like she isn't anywhere near as powerful in gameplay as she was in the first game either. Pretty generic ending there. Makalov, very sadly, has an A support ending with Astrid. But considering that, I didn't mention this, but I'll be showing it in the boss conversations. Oh, and then this line's pretty funny. But yeah, Astrid was engaged to Lekane at one point, so it makes sense why she considers Makalov, to be an okay suitor. And Nephany. Can't wait to see where she falls in my final results. Yeah, Nephany still continued to be a soldier, which is interesting. Rural Juggernaut is a pretty cool title as well. Should I return to his family in Omar Bron Farm for the rest of his peaceful life? He never lifted a weapon again. Meg had an ordinary marriage in her village, not to Zehawk, and had an ordinary family. Her house had a bad case of espionage. I'm so sorry. And unlike Ricard, she was actually honest about it. Or not. Maybe she was just like him. Again, Danved's another character I wish got more screen time, because if you see his supports in Path of Radiance, he's really interesting. Especially some of his supports with Nephany. And him becoming a traveling performer makes sense. Sadly, Largo not being in this game means that we don't get an ending for him. But he was probably unpetrified. And now, onto the Grail Mercenaries, who are mostly Crimeans too. And the mercenaries stayed mercenaries, they didn't become the Crimean Knights or anything. Well, and particularly one grave. And this guy. He's actually an extremely good sniper. I usually bring him to endgame. But he's still a jerk. And Gatry, I really wish I'd brought you to endgame, but I just didn't have time. I still like Gatry though. He's probably my favorite general in the series, at least his Radiant Dawn incarnation. Aww. Well, Oscar at least returned to the Royal Knights. Which means he's going to have to deal with Kieran more often. And Boyd. Oh, actually, we are going to see an A support ending here. I almost forgot that I got Boyd and Mist to an A, but I did. Also, yeah, that line's great. And yeah, this is different. If he didn't have an A support with Mist, it says he never did. That's all it says. And Rolf went on to become a tutor of archers too. So the cycle goes on. And Mia. A character I never expected to bring to Endgame, but I've never used her before, and she ended up being really good, so yeah. It was pretty fun, actually. I love True Blades in this game. Rail's Retreat, they never actually mentioned the name of the place. So yes, this ending's totally different. If she doesn't have an A support with Boyd, it mentions that Miss never married, so... yeah, he was really the one person that she would. And now, this conversation right here. In order to unlock this conversation, you have to have Soren fight Micaiah in 3-7, and have Soren fight Pelleas in 3 Endgame. Obviously, this requires you to be on a second playthrough, and have Pelleas survive. Now, there are many misconceptions about unlocking this. Some people think that you also need to have Pelleas fight both Izuka and Sephiroth, and also have Ike and Soren at an A support. None of those are necessary. You just need to do those 2 conversations with Soren. And your reward for all that is this. And now we finally know the full truth. To paraphrase a quote from an LP of a different game I watched, why is Soren such a jerk? Because his dad was an even bigger one. Ike doesn't get an epilogue title, and in the Japanese version he did, and it was Hero of the Blue Flames. It was omitted from the English version for some reason, but we got an official localized version of that title in Awakening, the Radiant Hero. But yes, that's Ike's A support ending with Soren, and also my mum is now crying because she hates the fact that Ike left on a journey and was never seen again. Yeah, my mother is just was distraught when she saw this ending. It was kind of weird. But now we have the second secret epilogue. This one is unlocked by simply recruiting Leron and having him survive the final battle. And this is why I like to call the game's true ending. So this is why I deployed the Black Knight in 1 endgame, and why I had Ike fight the Black Knight in 3-7. Yes, we actually did it. The original goddess is back. So you could say, this game ended with a literal Shin Megami Tensei. The true goddess has been revived. It took a very long time, though. But that means that Tellius passed her covenant for the next 1,000 years. Although, it seems like there might be another war. 1,200 years is a pretty long time, though. But this time, she's not going to give in to despair. She'll protect the world, and this time she'll believe in people. So now, it's time for one final song. So, we'll end this on a duet between the goddess and her faithful companion. So that song was called Dawn Awakenings. It only plays if you recruited Leron. You get a different credits theme if you didn't. I'm not entirely sure if it's finished yet, but whoa. Wow, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, it's finally over. Yeah, this project has gone on for a while, and it did have a lot of unforeseen delays, especially me getting horribly sick towards the very end, but I guess I'll give my final thoughts. Radiant Dawn is still one of my favourite games of all time. not just one of my favorites in the series. It's a game that I just absolutely enjoy every time I play it. I do not get tired of this game at all. But I will say, it's a game that I enjoy in spite of the biggest flaws I've enjoyed a game in spite of. I am fully aware of this game's shortcomings. A lot of the Legu's characters are still not balanced well, the new transform gauge is terrible, especially for cats, the character balance is awful, this game has both some of the most overpoweredly broken characters in the entire series, like Har, and some of the most weak and underpowered characters like Lyra. All in the same game, wow. And the part structure, it's good in theory, and I love the multiple perspectives that you get, and I love that you get to use so many different characters in one playthrough. But it does mean that many people get shafted in terms of availability, especially the Dawn Brigade. The majority of them just don't end up that useful later on. I feel like the base stats of the Grail Mercenaries, sure, you know, there were characters in the previous game, they should be powerful, but they could have toned that down a bit because they made them so good that it was just not really that much worth using anyone else later in the game. And yeah, there are issues with the story. It definitely tries to be a bit too big for its own good, but I actually think personally, and I know I'm probably alone in my opinion, but I think the good in the story outweighs the bad. I love Elincia's development during Part 2. I love the way Part 3, at least the first 2/3 of Part 3, portrays a war where you get to fight on both sides of the war. I love how you get to see like actual military tactics being employed, which is rare in a Fire Emblem game, like I talked about. Like you get to see things like disrupting the enemy supply lines, using lures, things like that, just everyone planning out their strategies. It's the first war in a Fire Emblem game that actually felt like a real war to me. And that makes it hit all the harder, the fact that that war ended up spanning the whole continent and awakening the goddess. And then the final part of the game, it does kind of come about a bit out of nowhere, and I do admit, the endgame chapters are very, very heavy on info dumps, and they just dump a ton of exposition on you in flashbacks that could have easily been integrated into the rest of the plot. But I do like the sheer cosmic scale that happens, and the main thing here, and this is actually why I played Path of Radiance first, all that payoff for seeing all that world building just come to a head with like the two goddesses, finding out how the world was created, how Bjork and Legu's came to be, who the first branded was, all of that, those were all based on details that had their seeds planted from the very beginning of Path of Radiance. And I love how even obscure support conversations from the first game get referenced in this one. Like Khalil and Largo opening a pub, Brom trying to marry Zihak off to one of his daughters. It's just so cool, and it really just shows that love for those fans who managed to find all those little hidden details in the first game, seeing all the payoff in the second one. There was so many hints, like going back to Path of Radiance, knowing that Zelgius is the Black Knight, there's actually a lot, and well, the most hilarious is the point where Ike says, General Zelgius sure seems sincere to me. But also, knowing Sephiron's true identity as well is pretty eye-opening, going back to some of the earlier chapters, and realizing how much of that was foreshadowed. What else? Like, Soren, all the things Soren says when they're in Dayan. Like, do you know what happens to a country when it loses a war? We see that happen at the beginning of Radiant Dawn. It's just, originally, because I like Radiant Dawn, Satoru Iwata, of course, why do you have to get me with the feels every time? Credits of every Nintendo game pre-2015, and even some post then. Yeah, we'll be going to the character ending soon, but, yeah, I like this game a lot more than Path of Radiance, and the main reason is its gameplay I find a lot more interesting. Biorhythm is also terrible, but yeah, that's another one of the flaws that I like this game in spite of. that gets me emotional every time. But yeah, that is the true story of the Radiant hero. Now you know. And now, records and results. But yeah, Path of Radiance is a weird game to me. I don't personally see it as the pinnacle of perfection many fans do. In fact, having played it again now, it's probably lower on my list of games in the series. I do think it has some of the best presentation and writing of any game in the series, but its plot is very generic. I like that Radiant Dawn at least tried to do something different with its plot. It failed in some areas, but again, like, the final plot, like, we actually fight a real god. Not a dragon who's powerful enough to be considered a god, an actual real god. And that had never been done in the series before. And even though they are cliches, they're different cliches to the rest of the series. I appreciate Radiant Dawn's plot for trying something new. But also, it's mainly the gameplay. Now, I will say the first, I'd say, 10 chapters of Path of Radiance, I love phenomenally, but everything after that, the game just gets so mind-numbingly easy that I just lose interest very quickly. Radiant Dawn remains reasonably challenging, even after your characters have become so powerful, they just have their mastery skills and are obliterating everything in the game. It's actually kind of like, I like that endgame is still a bit of a challenge. Like, even though it's relatively easy, if you're not careful, people can still die in endgame. I had quite a few failures there. Oliver got 1 kill, yes. Oh, let around only 1 kill. Anyway, I think I've said enough about what I feel about this game. I'm glad that I got to show it to all of you, and I'm glad that I finally got to, like, actually get, hopefully, a more positive LP of this game out there on YouTube, because I don't want to name any names, but the majority of playthroughs of Radiant Dawn that I've seen on YouTube are by people who despise this game, so I wanted to see if I could get just a more positive view of the game out. I'm fully aware of its flaws. Wow, Sanaki got 10 kills, and Leonardo beat her. It's kind of impressive. Surprised Danfei got so many kills too. But yeah, this is one of my favourite games ever, and I'm so glad that I got to show it to you. Okay, now we're finally getting into characters who kind of really served me well over the course of the playthrough. Oh, Tiban beat Nasala still? Wow, I didn't even bring him to endgame. Micaiah got 50 kills, that's not bad. Okay. Ike did not end up in my top 5. Wow. And I think I know who did. Someone who I didn't even bring to endgame. This is my first time I think Ike did not end up in the top 5, but yep, Ha got 5th, even though I didn't bring him to endgame. That's really interesting. And now I know both Edward and Mia are in here. Who comes first? Well, it's a True Blade, and it's Mia! Yes, Edward came out on top after all. But the question is, how far on top did he come out? Well, higher than Nethany. I really didn't expect Ike to not make the top 5. That is very rare for me. Okay, wow. Jill got 2nd. This is, I didn't expect this. As much as I really like Edward, I don't think I've ever got him to number 1 before. Wow, my top 5 for this playthrough genuinely surprised me. Like I said, this is the first time that Ike has not ended up in my top 5. And yeah, Ha ended up in the top 5 and he wasn't even in endgame. That should tell you something. So yeah, wow. And yeah, from here you get the option to save clear data. If you load this, you can start a second playthrough file. This is far more important if you've only beaten the game for the first time. But I may as well save clear data. There are more things that I could show, but for now, I think it's time to leave you. There will be a few bonus videos in this game. Radiant Dawn does not have much in the way of extra content. That's mostly confined to the extra second playthrough content. But there are a few additional things in Radiant Dawn, and are you going to be showing higher tier classes, or are you just going to be... Nope, okay, just from the very beginning. But yes, I'll be doing one video where I go over the character relationship diagram, which I can finally show now without fear of spoilers, because Ashnard being shown as Soren's father is in the character relationship chart, and it saves across all your playthroughs, even ones where you did not do a clear data transfer. So I couldn't have shown that, but now I can. I'll also be showing some of the extras that you unlock for beating the game, which is not much, but still there's a little bit to show. And then I'll be doing unused content videos for both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, because now I can finally talk about Path of Radiance as unused content because it contains heavy Radiant Dawn spoilers. And then I might talk about a bit of developer info and some behind the scenes on the development of both of these games. Some of the stuff was quite different in the original plan, like for example, Ike originally was a noble, and he originally was from Persis, Sephiron's domains. That would have added a bit to their interactions in the final chapters. I might also go into the timeline that is listed in the art books, because it goes into some interesting stuff. The history of Kilvas, of Dayan, of all the nations. There is some interesting things in there. But for now, you now know the true story of the Radiant hero. I hope things all make sense now. I hope that you have a new perspective whenever you use Ike in Smash Brothers, summoning him with an amiibo, or in Heroes. I hope that I maybe gave some people a fresh perspective on this game. I don't want to say that I hope I changed people's minds on it, because everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I'm fully okay with people disliking this game. There are good reasons to. And I don't think that everyone should be converted to loving Radiant Dawn. But I do, and my opinion on that will never change. So, I'll leave you now, and I'll see you for my next project next time.